In the restless streets of Chicago, where the nights are colder than the truth and the days heavier than the dreams struggling to survive, lived a young black woman named Alayna Mirelle Carter, carrying the weight of a world that never once paused to carry her. From childhood, she had watched her mother work 3 jobs, fight hunger with hope, and silence her own pain with a smile, while their small apartment cracked under the pressure of poverty, judgment, and the invisible expectations the world places on black women, expectations to be stronger, quieter, more responsible, and endlessly forgiving. And yet every morning Alayna rose with a fire in her chest that refused to die, a fire that whispered she was meant for more than the narrow life carved out for her. But destiny is a strange thing, sometimes ripping you apart just to rebuild you differently. And the night her mother's breath began to fade, slipping away like a final whispered prayer, Alayna's entire world fractured into sharp, painful pieces she was forced to gather alone. Becoming a protector for her younger brother, a provider for a home that suddenly felt twice as small, and a survivor in a system that demands strength without ever offering mercy. Still, beneath the grief and exhaustion, she held onto a fragile thread of hope, one that pulled her toward a dream she had buried a long time ago. A dream to become a nurse, to heal others the way she never got the chance to heal her mother. And in that moment, standing in the dim light of their apartment, with bills on the table and sorrow in her bones, she didn't know that this broken beginning would become the very path that transformed her into something unbreakable. Chicago's wind was unusually quiet that night. The city, usually roaring with sirens, cars, and voices, seemed to hold its breath. Streetlights flickered against the wet pavement, rain dripping down like the sky was grieving something it couldn't explain. In a small, aging apartment on the South Side, Alayna Mirelle Carter knelt beside her mother, praying with every beat of her trembling heart. The heater had broken again. Ice-cold drafts seeped through the thin walls, but the cold wasn't what terrified Alayna. It was the way her mother, Gloria Carter, struggled to breathe. A rattling inhale, a weak exhale, a pause that felt like eternity. "Mama, look at me. Breathe, please breathe," Alayna whispered, hands shaking as she held her mother's shoulders. Her younger brother, Trey, only 16, stood in the doorway, eyes wide, trying to be strong but failing. Tears clung to his lashes, and he bit his lip until it bled. Alayna dialed 911 with trembling fingers. When the paramedics arrived, everything happened fast. Oxygen masks, rapid voices, flashing light sound. Then the silent, cold hallway of the hospital. Motivational posters lined the walls. "You are stronger than you think. Every life matters." But none of it felt true. When the doctor finally approached, he carried the look people wear when they about to break someone's heart with quiet words. "I'm sorry. We did everything we could." 3 words, and Alayna's world collapsed. Trey sank to the ground, crying silently. Alayna held him, but she was breaking from the inside, shattered beyond anything she had ever known. Gloria Carter was gone, and with her went the warmth, the safety, the sense of home. 2 weeks later, Alayna dragged herself back to the diner where she worked long shifts. "You okay now?" "We were short-staffed," her manager said flatly. That was the condolence, nothing more. Bills still needed paying. Rent didn't pause for grief. Life didn't care who you lost. She wiped tables, poured coffee, faked smiles, and served customers who complained about cold fries, but never noticed the tears she wiped before approaching their table. At night, the apartment felt emptier than ever. Trey buried himself in schoolwork. Alayna buried herself in worry. She sat alone in her mother's old room, holding her framed photo. "Mum, I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. "I'm scared. I'm tired. I feel like I'm losing myself." She clutched the picture to her chest and cried, silently crying the way people cry when they know no one in the world is listening. And then, from somewhere deep inside her chest, she heard it. "You don't get to break. You don't get to quit." Maybe it was her mother's voice, maybe her own. But it lit a tiny spark in her soul. She wiped her tears, took a deep breath. "I'm going to become something, and no one can stop me." The next morning at the diner, an elderly customer, Mrs. Eleanor Grace, watched her closely. "You've been through something, haven't you?" she asked gently. Alayna forced a smile. "I'm fine. No, dear, you're strong." "That's different." She reached into her purse and handed Alayna a pamphlet, a nursing scholarship for underrepresented women. "You have the eyes of someone who notices pain," Mrs. Grace said softly, "and the heart of someone meant to heal it." Alayna's hands shook as she held the paper. She didn't know it yet, but this single moment would change her entire future. The night after Mrs. Eleanor Grace handed her that scholarship pamphlet, Alayna couldn't sleep. She lay on her back, staring at the ceiling of the small apartment she had lived in her whole life. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the faraway sirens, the muffled footsteps from the upstairs neighbor, all of it blended into a single endless noise. But beyond the noise, something else was awake inside her. A spark, a whisper, a beginning. She held the pamphlet in her hands so tightly the edges were bent. The words repeated over and over in her mind: nursing scholarship for underrepresented women. Underrepresented women. Women like her. Women society rarely acknowledged until they needed something from them. But could she really do it? Could she manage classes, long hours, Trey's responsibility, and the bills? Her mind said no. Her heart screamed yes. And somewhere in the silence, she remembered the look on Mrs. Grace's face, soft, knowing, almost motherly, as if she saw something in Alayna no one else saw. The next morning, sunlight poured weakly through the apartment window. Trey was already awake, sitting at the small kitchen table, eating cereal from a plastic bowl. His headphones hung around his neck. "You're up early," Alayna said softly, grabbing a glass of water. He nodded. Couldn't sleep. Neither of them elaborated. Some grief is too heavy for words. Alayna sat across from him, trying to figure out how to talk to him about her decision, about maybe going to nursing school, about needing more hours, about everything. "Trey," she began slowly, "I've been thinking about something." He waited, spoon frozen in mid-air. "I want to apply for a scholarship. For nursing school." His eyes widened slightly, but he didn't say a word. "I don't know how it'll work," she continued, "but I think I need to try. It's something Mum always wanted, and it's something I've wanted longer than I can remember." A long pause stretched between them. Finally, Trey said, "You'd be good at it." It was the last answer she expected from the boy who barely spoke since their mother's death. "You think so?" He shrugged, but there was conviction in his voice. "You helped Mum more than any doctor. You help me. You help everyone. You'd be a great nurse." The words hit her harder than she expected. She placed her hand on his. "Thank you," she whispered. For a moment, they sat in a fragile, warm silence, one that didn't erase their pain, but somehow softened it. After sending Trey to school, Alayna sat at the small table with the application form spread out in front of her. It felt surreal. Name: Alayna Mirelle Carter. Background: African American, financial need, high reason for applying. She paused at the blank line. Reason for applying. What was her reason? Survival dreams, her mother, or all three? She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to type. "I want to become a nurse because I know what pain looks like, what loss feels like, and how healing even a little can save someone's world. I want to be that healing for others." She stared at the words, feeling exposed but honest. When she finally hit submit, she exhaled deeply, as if releasing something she'd been holding for years. But now came the waiting. The days after submitting the application were slow and heavy. The diner felt extra loud, customers extra impatient, time extra cruel, and a refill on the lemonade. "Sweetheart, where's my order? I've been waiting. You people never get anything right." "You people." A phrase she heard far too often. Still, she pushed through each shift, each insult, each long hour. Because for the first time in a long time, there was something ahead, something worth the exhaustion. By the end of each day, her feet ached, her back screamed, and her eyes burned. But that spark inside her, it refused to dim. One rainy afternoon, after a grueling double shift, she made her way home soaking wet, exhausted, barely able to think. When she opened the apartment door, she saw Trey on the couch, holding something. "Alayna," he said, eyes wide, "something came in the mail for you." Her heart skipped. He handed her the envelope. Her fingers trembled uncontrollably. This was it, her future. Her mother's legacy, her chance. She tore the envelope open. Her eyes scanned the words. "We are pleased to inform you." Her breath caught. "You have been selected." Her knees weakened. Full scholarship. Her hand covered her mouth. "Congratulations." Asterisk, asterisk, the letter fell from her shaking hands. Trey jumped up. "What happened? What is it? Did you get it?" She nodded. Tears poured down her cheeks. She hadn't let herself cry in weeks. "I got it," she whispered. "Oh my God, Trey, I got it." Her brother hugged her tightly, arms wrapped around her as if he was holding her together. For the first time since their mother died, the apartment didn't feel heavy. It felt hopeful, alive, possible. The next morning, she walked into the diner with a different kind of energy. Her body still ached, her eyes still burned, but her spirit was unshakable. Mrs. Grace sat at her usual booth. The moment she saw Alayna, her old eyes warmed. "Well?" she asked. Alayna's smile returned real, this time. "I got it." Mrs. Grace clapped her hands together softly, tears glistening. "I knew you would. I knew it the moment I saw you." Alayna felt her throat tighten. "Thank you," she whispered. "You changed my life." Mrs. Grace shook her head. "No, dear, I just reminded you of who you already were." The next few weeks were brutal. Adjusting her schedule, preparing for orientation, saving every dollar she could, taking extra shifts, trying to balance home and dreams. Some nights she studied until she couldn't keep her eyes open. Some nights she cried quietly, overwhelmed by the weight of everything, but quitting never crossed her mind. Because now she wasn't just surviving, she was fighting forward. She was becoming the woman her mother believed she would be, the woman her brother needed, the woman she had always wanted to be. One evening, after putting away groceries, Trey approached her. "Alayna, I'm proud of you." She froze. He never said things like that. Not out loud. Slowly, she turned. "I mean it," he continued. "You always think you're carrying everything alone. But you're not. I see everything you do. I see how hard you work, and I'm proud." Tears stung her eyes again. She pulled him into a hug, holding him tightly. For so long she had felt alone. Hearing those words felt like the ground under her feet finally solidified. She whispered into his shoulder, "I'm doing this for both of us." But life, cruel as ever, was not ready to let her rise without a fight. Just as she began settling into her new routine, something happened that would test her strength in ways she never expected. Her shift was ending one night when a familiar voice called her name, "Alayna." She froze. It was Marcus, the man who once held her heart. The man who walked away without warning. The man who took her savings and disappeared. His sudden presence felt like a punch to the chest. He smiled nervously. "Can we talk?" Her grip tightened on the tray she was holding. Old wounds, still unhealed, pulsed painfully. She didn't know it yet, but his return was the beginning of another storm, one she would have to face with more courage than she ever imagined. And this storm would decide the future of everything she had worked for. The moment Alayna heard her name spoken in that unmistakable voice, her entire body went cold. The diner's neon sign flickered against the rain-soaked windows, casting shards of blue light across the floor. It made everything feel unreal, like a memory she hadn't asked to relive. Marcus. He stood near the door, same height, same confident posture, but somehow different. older, rougher, as if life had taken a toll on him too, though not nearly the price she had paid. Alayna didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Her mind rushed back to the night he left. The empty drawer, the missing savings, the silence where his promises used to be. She swallowed hard and set the tray down carefully, as if slow movements could control the eruption inside her chest. "What do you want?" she said finally, her voice steady but cold. Marcus exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I didn't know where else to go," she laughed, sharp, humorless. "Oh, I'm sure you had options. Plenty of people to run to, right? Isn't that what you're good at?" He winced. "Alayna, please. Just hear me out." No, the word came out before she even realized she said it. "No, Marcus, I don't owe you anything." She started to walk away, but his voice followed her. "I'm sorry." Her steps froze. He had never said those words before, not when he borrowed money and didn't return it. Not when he broke promise after promise. Not even when he left without looking back. Slowly, she turned. Marcus looked smaller than she remembered, not in size, but in presence, as if guilt had hollowed him out. "I messed up," he continued quietly. "I messed up everything. And I know that. I know I hurt you, but I'm trying. I'm trying to make things right." Anger burned through her like a storm. "Make things right," she said. "With what? Apologies don't pay back stolen rent. Apologies don't fix the night's tray went hungry because you took our savings. Apologies don't undo years of rebuilding myself." Her voice cracked. Marcus looked at her with shame she didn't remember him ever showing. "You're right," he whispered. "I hurt you. I hurt both of you. But Alayna, I'm not here to ask you for anything. I'm here because I need to tell you the truth." She stiffened. "The truth. Now, after everything." She crossed her arms. "You have 5 minutes." Marcus took a shaky breath, as if gathering courage he wasn't sure he deserved. "I didn't leave because I wanted to," he began slowly. "I left because I got involved with the wrong people. People who don't let you walk away. I owed money. A lot of money. They threatened you. They threatened Trey. I didn't know what to do. So I disappeared." Alayna stared at him, stunned. Her mind spun, her heart hammered, her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and rage. "And you didn't think to warn me?" she asked, voice trembling. "You didn't think I deserved to know that someone might hurt me, hurt Trey?" "I thought leaving would keep you safe," he said weakly. "No," she hissed. "You left to save yourself." Silence. The diner buzzed around them voices. Dishes, sizzling grills yet. Somehow they stood in a world separate from all of it. Finally she said, "Whatever problems you have, they're not mine. Not anymore." Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand, and I won't bother you again. I needed you to know." He turned toward the exit. For a moment, she thought that was the end. But life had never been that simple for her. Just as he reached the door, Alayna noticed something she hadn't before. A bruise. Dark, fresh, spreading across his ribs beneath his shirt. Her heart stuttered. "Marcus, what happened to you?" He paused, back still turned. "The same people," he said. "They found me again." She closed her eyes as frustration and pity battled inside her. She didn't love him anymore. She wasn't even sure she hated him. All she knew was that she couldn't afford to let the past pull her under. Not now, not when she finally had a future. "Marcus," she said firmly, "you need to leave the city. You need help, real help, not me." He nodded again, eyes lowered. "I know, and I won't bring this into your life. I promise." "Good," she replied sharply, "because if anything or anyone threatens my brother again, I won't forgive it." Marcus looked at her with a strange mix of regret and admiration. "You've changed," he murmured. "I had to," she said, and she meant it. He stepped out into the rain, disappearing into the night like a shadow returning to darkness. That night, Alayna couldn't sleep. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, much like the night she received the scholarship pamphlet. But this time her thoughts weren't hopeful, they were stormy. Why did Marcus come back? Were those people still after him? Could they come near her, near Trey? Her heart quickened. The past wasn't just knocking, it was clawing at her door. And she had too much to lose now. She sat up abruptly. No, she wouldn't let fear control her again. She had survived too much, worked too hard, climbed too far, and she wasn't going back. Not for a ghost from her past. Not for anyone. The next morning, she tried to focus on her studies. Her textbooks lay open on the kitchen table, anatomy diagrams, medical notes, highlighted passages. But her mind drifted over and over to Marcus. Trey noticed it. He sat down beside her, chewing a granola bar. "You look stressed," he said softly. "I'm okay," she lied. He raised an eyebrow. She sighed. "I saw Marcus last night." Trey froze mid-chew. His jaw tightened. "What did he want?" he asked sharply. "It doesn't matter," she said. "He's not part of our lives anymore." Trey looked away, eyes dark. "Good." She studied his face. "You don't look surprised." "I'm not," he said quietly. "I saw him a few days ago." Her breath caught. "What? Why didn't you tell me?" Trey swallowed. "Because I didn't want to worry you, and because he looked scared." A chill slid down her spine. "Trey, if he ever approaches you again, I won't talk to him," Trey said quickly. "I promise." She reached out and squeezed his shoulder. "Goob. And no matter what happens, we deal with things together. Okay?" He nodded. Together. She repeated the word in her mind like a vow. Later that evening, as she walked to her shift at the diner, she felt a strange sensation, like someone was watching her. She turned nothing, just rain, streetlights, cars passing the rhythm of the city. But she knew the feeling. She had lived with that feeling once, before back, when Marcus was tangled in dangerous things. Her pulse climbed. She walked faster, her hands curled into fists. Her breath sharpened. She wouldn't be afraid. Not again. But the truth was, fear had already found her. When she reached the diner, Mrs. Grace noticed instantly. "You look pale, dear," she said gently. "I'm fine," Alayna forced a smile. "Just tired." Mrs. Grace studied her knowingly. "Strength is a gift," she said softly, "but even the strongest soul needs rest and support." Alayna felt her throat tighten. Support, she rarely accepted it, rarely expected it, rarely had it. But maybe now she needed it more than ever. Before she could respond, the diner door swung open with a loud jingle that made her jump. Her heart lurched, but it wasn't Marcus. It was someone worse. A tall, heavy-set man with tattoos creeping up his neck. He scanned the diner's slowly, eyes, sharp, cold, predatory. They landed on her. Alayna felt her blood turn to ice. The man smirked, then walked out. No order, no words, just a message. A warning. A promise of trouble. Mrs. Grace touched her arm. "Dear, who was that?" Alayna whispered, the truth she had hoped she would never have to say aloud. Trouble from Marcus's past. Mrs. Grace looked at her with concern bordering fear. "Alayna, you need to be careful. I know, but being careful had never saved her, not when life was determined to test her." Still, she stood tall, steadied her breath, and whispered to herself, "I won't let this break me." Because this time, she wasn't fighting for survival. She was fighting for her future, and she would protect it. Mrs. Grace squeezed her hand. "Then you must be careful." "Very careful," Alayna nodded, but inside she felt something twist fear, anger, confusion, and something else, something she hadn't felt in years. Helpless. At midnight, after her shift ended, she stepped outside into the cool air. Fog curled around the streetlights like ghostly fingers. The city seemed too quiet, too still. She walked quickly. Halfway home, she felt it again. That prickling sensation. Someone watching. Her pace quickened. Footsteps echoed behind her, slow but deliberate. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Her breaths turned sharp. She turned a corner. So did the footsteps. She crossed the street. So did the footsteps. Her pulse roared. Finally, she spun around. Who's there? Silence. She saw only shadows, empty sidewalks, but silent windows. She stood trembling, adrenaline rushing painfully through her veins. Maybe it was her imagination, maybe not. A minute later, she forced herself to keep walking, faster this time, until she reached her building. Inside the apartment, she locked the door, checked it twice, then leaned against it, breathing hard. Trey looked up from the couch, startled. "What happened?" "I'm fine," she lied. "Just cold." But Trey wasn't a child anymore. He knew her better than she knew herself. "You're scared," he said. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked over and sat beside him. He rested his head on her shoulder, and for a moment, she felt grounded. Safe, not from danger, but from her own spiraling fear. But the next day, everything escalated. She received a message, a blocked number. "We need to talk." Her stomach dropped. "Marcus." She typed back. No. Instant reply, it's about your safety. Her hands shook. She didn't want to care, didn't want to know, didn't want to be pulled into his world again. But the truth was, she was already pulled in. She called him Barkus, answered instantly, breathless. Alayna. He whispered, "You're in danger. They think I hid with you. They think you know where I am." Fear stabbed her like ice. "I told you to leave," she said sharply. "I tried. But they found out where I was staying. They're looking for you now. For Trey." Her heart stopped. "Don't say his name," she whispered. "I'm trying to fix this. But I need you to listen." "No," she said firmly. "I'm done listening." Marcus's voice broke. "They're watching you." Her mouth went dry. Not imagined, not paranoia, real Alayna. "Please, let me explain before someone gets hurt." She swallowed. "What do you want from me?" "Just 10 minutes," he said. 10 minutes, and I swear I'll leave for good." She hesitated. Her fear said no. Her instincts said no. Her heart, the one he once broke, said no. But her reality, her responsibility to Trey, her need for answers, said yes. Where? He gave her a location. A public place. Daylight. Safe enough, but nothing felt safe anymore. The next afternoon, she sat on a bench at a crowded park, eyes scanning every corner. Kids played nearby. Couples walked dogs. People jogged past her. Normal life. Innocent life. Her life felt nothing like it. Marcus approached slowly, cautiously. He looked exhausted, frightened, and fragile. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "This is the last time," she replied. He nodded. "I know." Marcus sat beside her, leaving a careful distance between them. "I wasn't honest before," he said, "about how deep this goes." Alayna tensed. "Get to the point." The man who came into the diner. "Ridge, he's not just some guy I borrowed money from. He works for someone bigger. Someone who doesn't like to be crossed." Alayna swallowed. "And you crossed him?" Marcus nodded slowly. "I stole something." "What? Money?" She closed her eyes, pain twisting through her. "Of course. Always money. Always trouble." "That money wasn't his," Marcus added. "It was his boss's. A man named Lorne Keaton." The name meant nothing to her, but something in Marcus's tone chilled her. "He runs half the illegal gambling in the East Side," Marcus continued. "He's dangerous. Ridge works for him. And now they think I might have given some of the money to you." Alayna shook her head violently. "No, no, Marcus, I don't want any part of this, I know." He said desperately, "I know, and I'm trying to protect you. You are the reason we need protection." Marcus flinched but didn't deny it. "What do they want now?" she asked. "They want the money," he said. "All of it." "How much?" Marcus hesitated. 25,000. The breath left her lungs. "Marcus," she whispered, "I don't have $25,000. I barely keep food on the table." "I know," he said, "and I'm not asking you for it." "Then what are you asking?" He looked at her with something she didn't expect. Regret, fear, and something painfully close to surrender. I'm asking you to forgive me long enough to let me fix this. She stared at him. He seemed sincere, but sincerity didn't erase danger. She stood, "This isn't my world. I won't let it become Trey's world. Whatever you need to fix, do it without me." Marcus rose to, "I'll keep them away from you, I promise." "No," she said coldly. "You don't make promises you can't keep." She turned to leave Alayna. Marcus called, "Please be careful. They won't stop." She didn't look back. Walking home, her chest tightened with every step. This wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was a storm, and she was standing dead center. She didn't know what the next day would bring, or if she could protect Trey, or if Marcus would make things better or worse. All she knew was this: her life was no longer the quiet life she fought to rebuild. The past didn't just knock again, it broke the door. And in the coming days, she would face a choice that would change everything: her dreams, her safety, her future, her family. All of it hung in the balance. And the storm was only beginning. Rain hammered the pavement in relentless sheets the next morning, drowning the city in grey silence. Alayna stood at the bus stop, clutching her backpack against her chest, trying to calm the storm inside her. She kept replaying the man's cold stare from the diner, the way his eyes had tracked her like prey. It wasn't Marcus she feared, it was the world he carried behind him. She boarded the bus and slid into a seat near the window. The ride was quiet, but her mind screamed. Every face she saw, every shadow outside, every sudden movement made her pulse spike. For the first time in a long time, she felt unsafe. Not from poverty, not from struggle, not from grief, but from something dark, something violent that wasn't even hers to begin with. Her nursing orientation was supposed to be a day of hope, but her mind drifted again and again. Students around her laughed, introduced themselves, compared schedules, exchanged numbers. Alayna forced polite smiles, but she felt like she was watching it all through fogged glass. Mrs. Rivers, the program director, spoke with her usual stern warmth. "Nursing is more than a profession," she said. "It is responsibility. To care for others, you must first know how to care for yourself." The words hit Alayna like a silent accusation. Caring for herself felt impossible right now. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the tattooed man's smirk, saw Marcus's bruises, heard that confession, "I owed money. They threatened you. They threatened Trey." Her chest tightened. Trey, her entire world. The thought of anything happening to him made her stomach twist violently. She didn't hear another word of the orientation. Later that afternoon, she stood at the apartment door, key in hand, heart pounding. She checked the hallway twice before finally entering. "Trey," she called out. "Kitchen." He answered. She exhaled, relief flooding through her, and walked toward him. Trey was sitting at the table doing homework, earbuds in, pencil tapping. He looked normal, safe, innocent even. But when he lifted his eyes, he froze. "You look scared," he said. Alayna didn't want to lie. Not to him. Something happened last night. She began choosing her words carefully. Someone came into the diner, someone connected to Marcus. Trey's eyes hardened. Do they know about us? I don't know. Are they following you? I don't know. Is Marcus in danger? She hesitated. I think so. Trey swallowed, fear flickering beneath his tough expression. So what do we do? Alayna inhaled deeply. We stay alert. We stay together. And we don't let fear run our lives. But even she didn't fully believe the last part. That evening, she headed to another late shift. The streets were dark, and the night air smelled of rain and gasoline. She kept looking over her shoulder, expecting someone to appear from the shadows. When she reached the diner, it was quiet, comforting in a strange way. Mrs. Grace sat in her booth, knitting like always. You look troubled, she said gently. Alayna slid into the booth across from her. I'm okay, just tired. No, Mrs. Grace said, peering at her over her glasses. This isn't fatigue. This is fear. For a moment, Alayna felt her composure crack. Mrs. Grace reached out and held her hand softly. You can tell me, she whispered. And so, Alayna did. Not everything, but enough. She told her about Marcus returning, about the men he owed money to, about the one who walked into the diner. Mrs. Grace listened without interruption, her face a blend of shock and anger. Oh dear, she murmured, you're carrying too much alone. Alayna's eyes stung. It'll be fine. It has to be. No, Mrs. Gray said firmly, it has to be safe. That's different. Before Alayna could respond, the diner's door swung open loud, abrupt. Her heart nearly stopped. But it wasn't the tattooed man. It wasn't Marcus. It was a police officer. A young man with a calm, steady face approached the counter. Evening, he said, I'm looking for someone who may have been in this area last night. A man about 6 feet tall, neck tattoos, goes by the name Ridge. Sound familiar? Alayna's breath hitched. Mrs. Grace tightened her hold on Alayna's hand. No, she lied calmly. Doesn't sound familiar at all. The officer nodded, thanked them, and left. The moment the door closed, Alayna felt a wave of dizziness sweep through her. Ridge, the man from the diner, had a name. A name meant he was real. Real enough that the police were searching for him. Mrs. Grace spoke softly. How deep was Marcus involved with these people? Too deep, Alayna whispered, and they're looking for him. I think so. The next morning, Alayna woke to the faint light of sunrise bleeding through the thin curtains. The apartment was silent, Trey still asleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands pressed into her knees, heart pounding. Ridge's name echoed in her mind, and Marcus's desperate words replayed over and over. They think you have the money. They think you know where I am. Her world, the fragile balance she had fought so hard to achieve, teetered on the edge of collapse. She was exhausted, sleep-deprived, scared, but she had no choice but to act. If she hesitated, Trey could be dragged into this nightmare. She dressed quickly, pulling her hair back into a tight ponytail. Every step she took toward the kitchen was deliberate, every movement calculated. She needed a plan, even if it was just a fragile outline in the chaos. Trey stirred, rubbing his eyes as she poured him cereal. "Mum, I mean, Alayna," he mumbled sleepily. "You okay?" She forced a smile. "I will be, but I need you to listen. Don't leave the apartment alone today, and don't answer the door for anyone." "Understood." Trey nodded, eyes wide. He had grown up fast, faster than anyone should, but tonight she realized just how much he had already inherited her strength. By mid-morning, Marcus called. "I need you to meet me," he said, his voice tense, "somewhere public. I have a plan to keep them away from you and Trey, but I can't do it alone." Alayna hesitated. "I don't trust your plan, Marcus, and I certainly don't trust you to keep anything safe." "I don't have a choice," he said firmly. "It's Ridge or us. You can decide whether you want to stay alive." Her stomach twisted. There was no time for hesitation anymore. The meeting point was a small, crowded cafe downtown. Alayna arrived first, keeping to a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance. Her backpack pressed against her body like armor. Every noise made her flinch: the door opening, the hum of the espresso machine, the clatter of cups. Marcus arrived moments later, looking weary, haunted. He slid into the booth across from her without a word, pulling a small envelope from his jacket. "This," he said, placing it between them, "is everything Ridge and his crew need to leave us alone. But it's dangerous. You shouldn't touch it." Alina's eyes narrowed. "And what if this doesn't work?" "It will," he said, voice low. "But we have to act together. Trust me." She studied him for a long moment. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to refuse. But there was no alternative. Ridge was out there, and her brother, her only family, was the most vulnerable part of her life. She nodded. "Fine. Let's do it." Hours later, they were in a deserted parking garage, carefully moving under shadows. Marcus had arranged for Ridge's men to be distracted elsewhere, giving them a narrow window of opportunity to return the stolen money and any evidence linking Ridge to Marcus. Alina's hands shook as she held the envelope. Every step felt heavier than the last. She could hear the distant hum of the city above, the soft drip of water from the ceiling. It was quiet, too quiet. "This is it," Marcus whispered. "Once we hand this over, we walk away. They leave us alone. Everything ends." Alayna exhaled slowly. She had fought too hard to back down now. Then a noise-soft, deliberate echoed through the garage ridge. A tall figure stepped from the shadows, tattoos snaking up his neck, eyes glinting like knives. "So, we meet again," he said, voice low and dangerous. Alayna froze, clutching the envelope tightly. Marcus stepped in front of her, shielding her body. "You don't want to do this, Ridge. Walk away." Ridge laughed. "I think she wants to see me fail, don't you, little nurse?" The words sent a chill down Alayna's spine. She wasn't a nurse yet, but she had studied, learned, fought to become someone who could save lives. She refused to be a victim. Marcus stepped forward, and suddenly Ridge lunged. Chaos exploded in the concrete space. Shadows twisted, fists collided, shouts echoed. Alayna ducked instinctively, barely avoiding a swinging arm. Her backpack fell, scattering papers across the floor. And then she saw Trey. Trey had followed her, despite her warnings. He stood at the entrance, frozen, eyes wide with terror. "Get back!" she screamed. Ridge noticed him instantly, smirk twisting his face. Alina's heart slammed. She wouldn't let anything happen to him. Instinct took over. She grabbed a metal pipe lying near a column, gripping it tightly. Her hands shook, but her resolve did not. "Stay behind me," she shouted to Trey. The fight escalated. Marcus engaged Ridge, but Ridge was faster, stronger, fueled by rage. Alayna swung the pipe, hitting a wall to distract him. Ridge turned, smirking, underestimating her. She swung again hard. This time it connected with his arm. He yelped, staggering back. Trey, emboldened by seeing her courage, picked up a nearby piece of debris and hurled it. Ridge staggered further, and Marcus lunged at him, tackling him to the ground. The envelope fell. Alayna snatched it up. Her lungs burned, her arms ached, but she felt alive, terrifyingly alive. Ridge cursed and struggled, but Marcus held firm. Alayna and Trey moved to the edge of the shadows, clutching each other tightly. The sirens came first, police responding to the chaos from a nearby call. Ridge cursed, realizing the situation had escalated beyond control. He shoved Marcus, tried to run, but the flashing lights of law enforcement cut him off. Ridge disappeared into the night, leaving them shaken but alive. Later, back in the apartment, Alayna collapsed on the couch, Trey by her side. Their bodies were bruised, their hands scraped, but the storm had passed. "You okay?" Trey asked softly, voice shaking. Alayna hugged him tightly. "I'm okay," she whispered. "We're okay." For the first time in weeks, the apartment felt safe. But Alayna knew that safety was fragile. Life had taught her that storms were cyclical, and darkness never disappeared completely. Still, they had survived, and she had learned something crucial. Fear could stalk you, violence could chase you, and shadows could lurk everywhere, but courage, determination, and love were more powerful than any threat. She sat with Trey, feeling his heartbeat against her chest. She thought of her mother, of the sacrifices she had made, and of the fire that had been passed down to her. No matter what came next, she would rise. She would fight. She would protect her family. And she would not let anyone past, present, or future take away the life she had fought so hard to build. Alayna Mirelle Carter, broken but unbowed, looked out the window at the city lights. The storm had passed, but she knew that a new dawn awaited. One she would face with unshakable resolve, ready to embrace whatever came next. And in that quiet moment, she understood something she had never realized before. The world might try to break her, but she was stronger than anything it could throw at her. Stronger than fear, stronger than loss, stronger than shadows. She smiled faintly at Trey. "We made it," she whispered. "Yes," he replied, holding her hand tightly, and together they prepared to face the world undaunted, unbroken, unstoppable. The weeks that followed the confrontation in the parking garage were unlike anything Alayna had ever experienced. The city had returned to its usual rhythm, the relentless hum of traffic, the sirens in the distance, the chatter of people who didn't know the battles being fought in apartments, hearts, and streets. But for her and Trey, nothing would ever feel ordinary again. She poured herself into her studies with a new intensity, attending every class, memorizing every diagram, practicing skills in the lab until her hands ached. Marcus kept his promise. Ridge and Lorne Keaton vanished into the shadows of the city's criminal underworld, and Alayna never saw them again. But their presence lingered like a cold whisper in her mind. She refused to let fear dictate her life. Every time she felt panic rising, she reminded herself of the night she had fought, the night she had protected Trey, the night she had refused to be broken. That night had changed her. Days blurred into weeks. The scholarship gave her not just financial freedom, but a reason to rise above the pain. Mornings were early and exhausting, but she learned to greet them with gratitude. Evenings were long and taxing, juggling homework, clinical rotations, and the diner shifts. She still worked to support Trey. Trey, now more independent, took on responsibilities at home with a maturity that impressed her every day. He cooked simple meals, handled bills, and kept the apartment safe in ways only a 16-year-old could. They had become more than siblings. They were a team, two survivors bound by loss, courage, and determination. One rainy afternoon, Alayna stayed late at the hospital, studying in the empty library. The faint smell of antiseptic mixed with the hum of fluorescent lights, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe. A classmate, Naomi, approached quietly. "Alayna, can I sit?" Alayna nodded, surprised. Naomi was warm and approachable, someone who had noticed Alayna's quiet resilience since the first day. "You're amazing," Naomi said softly, flipping open her notebook. "I've seen how hard you work, how you carry everything and still show up. I don't know how you do it." Alayna felt her throat tighten. She wanted to respond with a joke, to hide the truth, but instead she whispered, "I don't do it alone. I have to protect my brother, and I have to keep moving forward." "That's enough reason," Naomi nodded. "Well, you inspire me." For the first time in months, Alayna felt a flicker of pride, inspiration, strength she had never given herself permission to claim. Months later, Marcus reappeared not as a threat, but as a friend trying to reconcile the chaos he had caused. He came to her apartment one evening, cautious, with a bouquet of small white flowers. "I wanted to apologize," he said quietly, "for everything. For leaving, for putting you and Trey in danger, for everything. I can't undo it, but I want to make it right. I want to help, if you'll let me." Alayna studied him carefully. Time had changed them both. His once reckless eyes now carried remorse. She still remembered the pain he had caused, but she also remembered the truth. She had survived it all, stronger than ever. "Marcus," she said slowly, "you can't fix the past, but maybe you can be better in the future. That's all any of us can do." He nodded, relief washing over his face. "I promise I'll never put you or Trey in danger again." Alayna exhaled, a weight lifting from her shoulders. Trust would have to be earned, slowly, but she allowed herself a small measure of forgiveness. Not for him, for her own peace. Graduation day arrived quietly but beautifully. The ceremony was small, intimate, a celebration of survival, hard work, and resilience. Alayna walked across the stage in her cap and gown, her heart full. Trey was in the audience, clapping louder than anyone else. Mrs. Grace was there too, beaming with pride. When the dean announced her name, she stepped forward and accepted her diploma. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was proof. Proof that despite grief, fear, and danger, she had become more than her circumstances. She had become a healer, a survivor. Tears blurred her vision, but she smiled. For Trey, for her mother, for herself. After graduation, Alayna secured a position at a busy hospital on the city's south side. It wasn't easy long hours, emotionally draining patients, endless responsibilities, but she faced every challenge with courage and grace. Each patient she helped reminded her why she had fought so hard to survive. Each small life she touched felt like a tribute to her mother's sacrifices. Trey thrived too, inspired by Alayna's determination. He focused on school, dreams of his own, and the promise of a life free from fear. Marcus stayed distant but supportive, never interfering, learning to respect the boundaries she had fought to establish. Their past remained complicated, but they had learned to coexist in peace without letting history control them. But Alayna knew life would continue to bring trials. Darkness would always lurk somewhere. But she also knew this. She had endured, grown, and conquered her fears. She had become unbreakable. Standing at her apartment window one evening, Alayna watched the city lights flicker beneath the rain. Her journey from grief to resilience, from fear to courage, from survival to triumph felt surreal. Every sleepless night, every danger faced, every tear shed had led her here. Trey approached, resting his head on her shoulder. "We made it," he whispered. "Yes," she replied softly, holding him close. "We really did," Alayna smiled, eyes reflecting the city's glow. The storm had passed, the shadows had faded, and for the first time she truly felt free. She had survived, she had risen, she had triumphed. And this was only the beginning of the life she was destined to live, full of strength, love, and unshakable hope. If you thought Alayna's journey was inspiring, just wait until the next story. We have even more real-life tales of struggle, courage, and triumph coming your way. Hit that like button if you felt her journey, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss a story that could change the way you see life.